The egg was still warm when Ethan realized it was breathing. Not metaphorically. Not some trick of flickering light or a stressed-out mind playing games after 3 sleepless jumps through dead space. Breathing. A slow, deliberate rhythm pulsed beneath his fingertips. In, out. In, out. Ethan froze. The abandoned cargo bay stretched endlessly around him, lit only by the weak cone of his helmet lamp. Dust drifted in the airless chamber like frozen smoke, undisturbed for decades, maybe centuries. The station itself wasn't even on official maps. It had appeared as a ghost signal, a flicker at the edge of his scanner, something most pilots would ignore. Ethan didn't. That had always been his problem. "What the hell?" he muttered, his voice thin over the comms, swallowed immediately by silence. No power. No heat signatures. No signs of life. And yet, his gaze locked back onto the object in front of him. The crate had been empty when he pried it open. He was sure of it. He remembered the hollow echo when he knocked on its sides. The way the metal interior reflected his light cleanly, nothing inside but darkness and dust. But now there was an egg. It sat perfectly centered inside the crate, as if it had always belonged there. Smooth. Matte black. Oval, but slightly too symmetrical, like someone had tried to replicate the idea of an egg without fully understanding it. Another pulse ran through it. In, out. Ethan slowly pulled his hand back. "Nope," he whispered. "Nope, I'm not doing this." He took a step backward. Then another. His boots scraped softly against the metal floor, the sound unnaturally loud in the stillness. Every instinct screamed at him to leave, to turn around, get back to his ship, and forget he'd ever docked with this place. But he didn't move any farther. Because the egg changed. A faint crack appeared along its surface. Ethan stopped breathing. The line was thin, hairline, but it hadn't been there before. "I didn't touch it," he said quickly, as if something might be listening. "I didn't do anything." The crack spread. Not with the brittle snap of a normal shell, but with a slow, smooth motion, like the surface was unfolding rather than breaking. Another pulse. Stronger this time. In. Out. The air, if it could be called that, felt heavier. His suit systems flickered briefly, static dancing across his visor before stabilizing again. Okay, that's new," Ethan breathed. He should call it in. That's what protocol said. Unknown anomaly, possible alien artifact, report, mark location, back away. He didn't. Instead, he leaned closer. Because of course he did. The crack widened. Something shifted inside. Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs, loud enough he could hear it through his helmet. "What are you?" he whispered. The egg responded. Not with movement. Not exactly. But with a presence. A sudden, overwhelming awareness that he was no longer alone. Then, a voice. Not through his comms. Not through the air. Inside his head. Cold. Quiet. Certain. "You opened it." Ethan recoiled violently, slamming into the edge of the crate behind him. "What? Who said that?" Silence. The egg split cleanly down the middle. Light erupted from within. Not normal light. Not white, not yellow, something harsher, something that didn't belong to any spectrum his eyes could process. It flooded the cargo bay, swallowing shadows, distorting edges, making the world feel thin. Ethan threw up an arm to shield his visor. "Stop, stop," he shouted, though he didn't know why. The light didn't stop. It intensified, pouring out of the egg like a contained star suddenly set free. And inside, Ethan forced himself to look, because not looking somehow felt worse. What he saw made his mind stutter. There was no creature, no yolk, no shell fragments, no anything that made sense. Inside the egg was a void, a perfect absence, darker than space, deeper than anything he could comprehend. It didn't reflect light, it consumed it, bending the glow around itself, warping reality at its edges. Ethan's breath came in short, panicked bursts. "That's not," he choked. "That's not possible." The void shifted. Not outward. Inward. Like it was folding into itself infinitely. And then, the voice returned. Closer now. Sharper. "You should not have seen this." Ethan shook his head, backing away again, nearly tripping over his own feet. I didn't know. I thought it was just cargo, just salvage. Observation is breach. The light flickered. The walls of the cargo bay trembled, their edges blurring, like a bad transmission struggling to hold form. Ethan's stomach dropped. Breach of what? For a moment, everything stopped. The pulsing, the light. Even his own breath seemed to hang frozen in his chest. Then the void expanded slightly, just enough to feel closer. Of everything. Ethan didn't feel himself fall. There was no sense of motion, no impact, no transition his mind could track. 1 second, he was in the cargo bay, blinded by impossible light, staring into something that shouldn't exist. The next, he was lying flat on his back, gasping for air that suddenly did exist. Real air. Cold. Thin. Tasting faintly metallic. Ethan sucked in a sharp breath and bolted upright. The cargo bay was gone. The station was gone. Even the concept of walls was gone. Above him stretched an endless expanse of black, but it wasn't empty. It was filled with stars, millions, maybe billions, but something was wrong with them. They flickered. Not like distant suns shimmering through atmosphere. Like broken signals. Each star pulsed irregularly, stuttering between brightness and absence, as if reality itself was buffering. What? Ethan's voice echoed strangely, as though the space around him couldn't decide how sound should behave. What is this? No response. Ethan turned slowly, his boots scraping against a surface that looked like glass but felt like nothing at all. Beneath his feet, reflections of the fractured stars shimmered faintly, stretching into impossible angles. Okay, he muttered, trying, and failing, to steady his breathing. Okay, this is a hallucination. Oxygen deprivation. Stress. Something in the station, gas leak, maybe. This is not a hallucination. The voice cut through his thoughts instantly. Ethan spun around. It was there. The void. No longer contained within the egg. No shell. No boundary. It hovered in front of him, a distortion in existence itself. The flickering stars bent subtly around it, like gravity, but wrong. Not pulling, but unmaking. Ethan staggered back. You, what are you? The void pulsed once. Irrelevant. That's not irrelevant to me. Ethan snapped, fear sharpening his voice. Where am I? What did you do? A pause. Not silence, something deeper. Like the absence of response was intentional. Then. This is where you are not meant to be. Ethan blinked. That doesn't answer anything. The stars flickered harder. One of them dimmed, rapidly, unnaturally, before vanishing completely. Ethan froze. Did you just do that? No. Another star blinked out. Then another. Panic surged through him. Hey, stop that. Put them back. The void shifted closer, its edges folding in ways his eyes couldn't follow. I am not stopping anything. Ethan's chest tightened. Then who is? The answer came without hesitation. You are. The words hit him harder than any physical blow. What? He said, shaking his head. That's not possible. I'm not doing anything. You are here. Another star vanished. The darkness seemed to spread, subtle at first, then faster, like ink bleeding through water. Ethan's breathing grew ragged. I don't understand. I didn't do anything except open that stupid egg. The void pulsed again. Stronger this time. The space around them trembled. Yes. Ethan's stomach dropped. No, he whispered. No, that's not. Opening it doesn't mean this isn't my fault. The void moved closer. Close enough that Ethan felt a pressure against his skin, like standing too near something vast and heavy. Observation is interference. The words echoed, not just in his mind now, but in the space itself, rippling outward. A cluster of stars ahead flickered violently. Then. They collapsed. Not exploded. Not faded. Collapsed inward, like something had reached into reality and pinched them out of existence. Ethan stumbled back, horror flooding his chest. Stop. Just stop. Interference is damage. Ethan grabbed his head, fingers digging into his helmet. Then send me back. Undo it. I don't want to be here. For a moment, the void was still. Then it shifted again. Not expanding. Not contracting. Changing. Its shape twisted, folding into something that almost resembled a silhouette. Not human, not really, but closer to something his mind could attempt to process. Ethan swallowed hard. What is this place? The answer came slower this time. Measured. This is the boundary. Ethan frowned, confusion cutting through the fear for just a second. Boundary of what? The flickering stars dimmed further. The darkness spread. Your lair. A distant sound echoed through the void. A low, tearing noise, like fabric being stretched too far. Ethan turned toward it instinctively. What was that? The void didn't answer immediately. Instead, it drifted slightly to the side, as if giving him a clearer view. And that's when Ethan saw it. Far in the distance. Something was wrong. The black expanse wasn't uniform anymore. A thin, glowing line stretched across the sky, jagged and uneven. Cracked. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. No way, he whispered. The crack pulsed faintly, leaking a strange, pale light that didn't match the flickering stars around it. Another tearing sound echoed. The crack grew wider. Ethan took a step back. That wasn't there before. Correct. His pulse thundered in his ears. Then what is it? The void turned toward him, and for the first time, there was something in its presence that felt focused, directed. You created it. Ethan's mind went blank. No, I didn't. I just opened. He stopped. Because suddenly, he remembered something. Something small. Something he hadn't thought about until now. When he first opened the crate, there had been nothing inside. He was sure of it. Completely empty. So how? His voice came out barely above a whisper. It wasn't there before I looked. The void didn't respond. It didn't need to. Ethan stared at the widening crack in the distance, dread pooling in his chest. I didn't find the egg, he said slowly. Another tear split across the sky. The crack deepened. Light spilled through, and something behind it shifted. Ethan's breath hitched. He whispered, his voice trembling now. I made it real. The crack spread faster. Ethan could hear it now, an endless tearing, like reality itself was being pulled apart at the seams. The sound didn't come from one direction. It was everywhere. Inside his head. Inside his chest. Inside his thoughts. No, he whispered, stumbling backward. No, this isn't happening. The glowing fracture across the void widened, jagged lines branching outward like lightning frozen in place. The flickering stars around it dimmed in response, as if whatever lay beyond the crack was draining them just by existing. Ethan grabbed his helmet, fingers trembling. You said I caused this, he said, forcing the words out. Then tell me how to stop it. The void hovered silently in front of him. For a moment, he thought it wouldn't answer. Then, it cannot be stopped. The words were calm. Absolute. Ethan's stomach twisted. Everything can be stopped, he snapped. Everything has a fix. Another star blinked out behind him. Then 3 more. The darkness spread faster now, swallowing entire sections of the sky. You misunderstand the nature of the damage. Ethan shook his head violently. Then explain it to me. The void shifted, its shape stretching, folding, becoming less like something he could perceive and more like something his mind was actively rejecting. You have seen beyond your layer. The phrase hit him again, heavier this time. Ethan swallowed hard. You keep saying that. What does it mean? Silence. Then, the space around them changed. The flickering stars froze in place. The spreading darkness paused mid-motion. Even the crack itself seemed to halt, suspended in a moment that refused to move forward. Ethan felt it immediately. A pressure. Like the entire universe had taken a breath, and was holding it. The void began to unfold. Not outward. Not inward. But conceptually. Its shape rearranged itself into something closer to a figure. Tall, vaguely humanoid, made entirely of absence. Edges blurred, shifting constantly, like it couldn't decide what form to take. Ethan stared, unable to look away. "Your universe," it said slowly, "is a shell." The words echoed, not just in sound, but in meaning. Ethan frowned. A shell, around what? The figure tilted slightly. Something larger. A low rumble rolled through the void. The crack flickered faintly. Ethan's chest tightened. "You're saying, there's more outside?" "There is always more outside." The simplicity of the answer made it worse. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, pacing now, boots scraping against the impossible surface beneath him. Okay, so my universe is a shell. Fine. Whatever. That doesn't explain why it's breaking. The void watched him. Or at least, he felt like it did. Shells exist to contain. Ethan stopped pacing. Contain what? The silence stretched. Then. Observation. Ethan blinked. That doesn't make any sense. The void stepped closer, or perhaps the space between them simply stopped existing. Your reality is stable because it is unobserved from beyond. Ethan's breath slowed, confusion overtaking panic for a brief moment. Unobserved, from outside. Yes. The crack in the distance pulsed faintly. A thin strand of light leaked through it, writhing like something alive. Ethan felt his pulse spike again. Then what happens if something does observe it? The void didn't answer immediately. It didn't need to. Because the crack suddenly grew. A sharp tearing sound split through everything as the fracture widened violently, jagged edges peeling back like something was pushing from the other side. Ethan staggered back. No, that wasn't me. It was. The response was immediate. Cold. Certain. Ethan shook his head. I didn't do anything. You looked. The words hit him like a physical force. Ethan's mouth opened, then closed. His thoughts raced, trying to reject it, trying to find some other explanation. There's no way it's that simple, he said, his voice weaker now. Just, looking doesn't break reality. The void leaned closer. Its form flickered, edges distorting violently for a split second. You did not just look. The stars around them dimmed further. The darkness crept closer. You observed beyond your boundary. Ethan's throat went dry. The egg. The interface. His heart skipped. Interface. A controlled breach. A contained point of contact. Ethan stared at it, horror slowly replacing confusion. You mean, it was supposed to be there? No. The answer came faster than any before. Sharper. It was not supposed to be opened. The crack tore wider. A deep, resonating sound echoed through the void, something vast shifting against the edges of existence itself. Ethan turned toward it, dread flooding every nerve. Then why was it there at all? He shouted. Who put it there? For the first time, the void hesitated. Just for a fraction of a second. Irrelevant. That's not irrelevant. Ethan snapped. If someone made it, then they. He stopped. Because something moved beyond the crack. Not clearly. Not fully. But enough. A shadow. Vast. Wrong. Watching. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. What is that? The void didn't answer. The crack pulsed again. Wider now. Brighter. And the thing beyond it shifted closer. Ethan stumbled back, his voice barely a whisper. Tell me that's not because of me. The void turned toward him. And for the first time, its presence changed. Not calm. Not controlled. Something else. Something unfamiliar. It is aware. The words landed like a death sentence. Ethan felt his knees weaken. Aware of what? The crack split further. Light spilled through in violent waves. And from the other side, something looked back. The void's voice dropped lower. Tighter. As if even it didn't fully understand what was happening anymore. A view. Ethan felt it before he understood it. Before he could think. Before he could even breathe. Pressure. Not physical, not something his suit could measure, but something deeper, something that pressed against his mind itself. Like standing beneath an ocean that wasn't made of water, but awareness. Watching. Measuring. Judging. Ethan staggered back, a strangled sound catching in his throat. No, 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 what is that? The crack in the void pulsed violently now, jagged edges peeling apart as if reality itself had become too weak to hold its shape. Light poured through in uneven bursts, illuminating something behind it that refused to fully exist in one place. It was too large. Too wrong. Ethan's vision struggled to process it. Every time he tried to focus, the shape shifted, stretching across impossible angles, folding in on itself, as if it existed in more directions than space allowed. The void moved in front of him. Not protectively. Not aggressively. Just closer. Do not focus on it. Ethan let out a shaky laugh, bordering on hysteria. That's kind of hard when it's tearing open the universe. The presence beyond the crack shifted. The tearing sound deepened. And then, it moved closer. Not physically, not in the way Ethan understood movement, but the distance between it and the crack began to collapse. Like it was deciding where near should be. Ethan's knees buckled. He caught himself just before hitting the ground. Why does it feel like it's inside my head? The void's form flickered. Unstable. Because it is aligning to your perception. Ethan's breath hitched. What does that mean? The answer came quickly this time. Too quickly. You are the reference point. Another tearing sound ripped through the void. The crack widened again, splitting further across the sky. The flickering stars near it didn't just dim anymore, they fractured, breaking into shards of light that dissolved into nothingness. Ethan turned away, covering his helmet as if that could block it out. Stop it. Make it stop. I am not causing this. Then who is? He shouted. The void didn't answer. It didn't need to. Because the presence reacted. A shift. A subtle, horrifying adjustment in its impossible form. And Ethan felt it. A tension. Locking onto him. His breath came in sharp, uneven bursts. It sees me. The void went still. For the first time since this began. Completely still. Yes. The single word echoed like a verdict. Ethan shook his head violently. No, no, that's not possible. I'm not even really here. This is some kind of projection, right? Some interface, like you said. You are present enough. The crack flared. A thin tendril of something slipped through. Not fully. Not completely. But enough. Ethan screamed. The thing that emerged wasn't solid. It wasn't liquid. It wasn't anything his mind could categorize. It twisted as it entered, collapsing and reforming in ways that made his vision stutter. And everywhere it touched, reality burned. Not with fire, but with absence. Stars near the crack didn't fade this time. They erased. Instantly. Cleanly. Like they had never existed at all. Ethan stumbled backward, nearly falling. You said it couldn't get in. It cannot. Then what is that? He shouted, pointing wildly at the tendril. The void's form wavered. Uncertain. A fragment. The word didn't help. It made it worse. Ethan's voice dropped to a whisper. A fragment of what? The tendril stretched further into the void, reaching, searching, its movement erratic, as if it was testing the rules of this reality and finding them flexible. The crack groaned, widening under the strain. The void turned toward Ethan again. And this time, there was no mistaking it. Fear. Predator. The word hit harder than anything else. Ethan's mind reeled. Predator. You're telling me that thing hunts, what, universes? No answer. The tendril snapped suddenly toward a cluster of nearby stars. They vanished instantly. Consumed. Not destroyed. Not absorbed. Simply removed. Ethan's stomach twisted violently. Oh my God. The void pulsed rapidly now, its form destabilizing further. It has not entered fully. Ethan let out a shaky breath. That's supposed to make me feel better. It should. The calmness of the response was gone. Replaced with urgency. If it enters completely, your layer collapses. Ethan stared at the widening crack, at the tendril slipping further through, at the impossible shape behind it pushing closer. How do we stop it? He demanded. Tell me how to stop it. The void hesitated. Just for a moment. Then. We do not. Ethan felt something inside him snap. That's not an option. The tendril shifted again. This time. Toward him. Ethan froze. It wasn't fast. It didn't need to be. Because distance was no longer behaving correctly. 1 second it was far away. The next. It was closer. Reaching. Searching. Ethan's voice trembled. Why is it coming toward me? The void turned fully toward him. And the answer came quietly. Too quietly. Because of the breach. Ethan's chest tightened. The crack. A pause. Then. No. The tendril moved again. Closer. Ethan could feel it now, like ice scraping against his thoughts. You. The word barely registered. Ethan shook his head, backing away instinctively. No, that doesn't make any sense. The void drifted closer, its unstable form flickering violently. You are the point of contact. The crack tore wider. The presence behind it surged forward. Ethan's breathing became erratic. I didn't open it that much. I just... You observed. The tendril reached again. Closer. Closer. Ethan's voice broke. Then close it. Close whatever I opened. The void stopped in front of him. For the first time. It didn't feel distant. It felt focused. You are the opening. The realization hit him all at once. Not slowly. Not gently. Like a blade driven straight through his thoughts. Ethan's eyes widened. No. The tendril lunged. The crack screamed. The universe trembled. And the void whispered. And it has seen you. Everything was collapsing toward him. Ethan could feel it. Not just see it. Space itself bent inward, distorting around his body like he had become the center of gravity for something far worse than mass. The flickering stars, what few remained, stretched into thin of light, dragged toward him before snapping out of existence. The crack had grown massive now. It no longer looked like a fracture. It looked like a wound. And beyond it, that presence pressed closer. Hungry. Patient. Certain. Ethan stumbled backward, though the motion meant nothing anymore. Distance had lost its meaning. Every step he took felt like it barely mattered, as if the universe itself was folding faster than he could move. Tell me how to fix this, he shouted, his voice breaking under the pressure crushing his thoughts. The void hovered in front of him, its form unstable, flickering, collapsing, reforming. Even it was struggling now. You already know. Ethan shook his head violently. No, I don't. Stop saying that, I don't understand any of this. The tendril lashed forward again. Closer this time. So close he could feel something brushing against the edges of his mind. Cold, invasive, peeling back layers of thought like it was searching for something deeper. Ethan gasped, dropping to one knee. Get it out of my head. It is aligning. The void's voice was strained now. Weaker. It uses you to enter. Ethan's heart pounded violently. Then cut me off. Do something. The crack split wider. A deafening tear echoed across everything, and more of that impossible presence began to press through, not fully, not yet, but enough that the void around them warped violently, unable to sustain its own structure. Reality wasn't just breaking anymore. It was failing. Ethan forced himself to stand, even as his legs trembled. There has to be another way, he said, his voice desperate. Seal the crack, destroy the egg, reverse whatever I did, anything. The void drifted closer. For a moment. It almost seemed, still. As if it were considering something impossible. Then. The boundary is not external. Ethan blinked. What? The tendril surged again. Closer. Everything screamed. It is defined by observation. Ethan's breath caught. No, he whispered. The void didn't stop. You opened the system. The words came slower now. Heavier. Like each one carried weight the void itself could barely sustain. You created a reference. Ethan staggered, his thoughts spiraling. A reference point. The realization began forming before he could stop it. No, he said, shaking his head. No, you're not saying what I think you're saying. The tendril lunged again. Closer than ever. Ethan felt something tear at the edges of his mind, like claws dragging across his consciousness. He screamed. You must become unobserved. The words cut through everything. Clear. Final. Ethan froze. The pain dulled, not because it stopped, but because his mind couldn't process anything else. UN, observed, he repeated weakly. The void hovered inches from him now, its unstable form flickering like it might collapse at any second. The breach exists because you perceive it. The crack flared violently. The presence surged. It persists because you remain. Ethan's breathing slowed. Not because he was calming down, but because something inside him had gone very, very still. If I, he started, his voice barely audible, if I stop existing. You remove the reference. The void didn't hesitate, didn't soften the truth. The boundary restores. The tendril struck again. And this time, it touched him. Ethan gasped as something cold and infinite brushed against his thoughts, probing deeper, trying to pull itself through him like he was nothing more than an opening. The pain was indescribable. Not physical. Conceptual. Like something was rewriting what it meant for him to exist. He dropped to his knees, clutching his head. There has to be another way, he cried. There is not. The void's voice was fading now, breaking apart. You are the breach. The crack screamed wider. The presence beyond it surged forward, vast and unstoppable. Ethan's thoughts raced, fear, denial, desperation, but beneath it all, one truth settled in, cold and undeniable. He had opened it. He had looked. And now, it was looking back. His hands trembled as he lowered them from his helmet. The tendril hovered inches from his face, twitching, searching, as if waiting for permission to finish crossing through. Ethan swallowed hard. Will it hurt? He asked quietly. The void didn't answer. Maybe it couldn't anymore. Or maybe the question didn't matter. Ethan let out a slow, shaky breath. Then another. He closed his eyes. Then just, do it, he whispered. For a moment, everything went silent. No tearing. No pressure. No presence. Just nothing. And then, Ethan let go. Not of his body. Not of his thoughts. But of the act of observing. He stopped focusing. Stopped thinking. Stopped being aware. And in that instant, he was gone. Not dead. Not destroyed. Simply unobserved. The effect was immediate. The tendril snapped backward violently, as if something had ripped its anchor away. The crack shuddered, its jagged edges collapsing inward as the impossible light beyond it vanished. The tearing stopped. The pressure lifted. The stars, what remained of them, stabilized. And then, the crack sealed. Completely. As if it had never existed. Silence returned. Stillness. Balance. Far away, in a dead cargo bay on an abandoned station, a metal crate sat undisturbed. Inside it, a smooth, matte black egg rested quietly, uncracked, unbroken, unseen, waiting.